Foolish earthlings was a phrase muttered by every race the humans encountered, specifically every race from the Draco quadrant of the galaxy. "I'm sure you can guess where this lesson is heading," remarked the Talon instructor, his three eyes scanning the classroom filled with 18 eager students. The Core War was a topic they had all been anticipating, their gazes fixed on the teacher with barely concealed excitement. "Humans are a rather curious species," began the instructor. "When the Galactic Council first took notice of them, they were offered membership. To everyone's surprise, the humans flatly refused, stating, 'We decline this offer as we refuse to be bound by the will of those not of our kind. However, we are open to forming an alliance.' This response puzzled the Council, but they went ahead with the alliance anyway. It soon became clear why humans shunned full membership. They have always been a rebellious species, resistant to authority. The Council had a set of rules that all members must follow. Two of these rules particularly irked the humans. One prohibited interspecies relationships, and the other mandated that each species provide a tribute to fund the Council's exploration efforts. The former rule was enacted out of the belief that such relationships would contaminate the bloodlines, and the latter was seen as a way to fund galactic exploration. The instructor shifted his gaze around the room before continuing. "You might be wondering how the Draconian Empire fits into all of this. Draco was an independent sector of the galaxy, governed by a reptilian species with several subgroups, the Snarkonics, the Linux, and the Renes. The Draconians followed a warrior-like, religious society under the deity Quimodal, a colossal turtle who was said to maintain universal balance. The teacher activated the holographic projector, displaying the Draco sector's location. As many of you know, 60 years ago, the humans humiliated the Draconians in the War of Helmet Liberation. This war was intense and bloody, ending in a human victory. They subsequently acquired the planet Cuts, rich in a substance called oil, which, although considered trivial by galactic standards, was crucial for human terraforming machines used on barren worlds. A student interjected, "Is this where the scandalous part comes in?" "Yes," the instructor replied, a hint of frustration in his tone. Human soldiers, bored and with nothing to do, began engaging in unsanctioned activities. Unlike other species, who view mating as a means for reproduction, humans often do it purely for pleasure. This behavior, perceived as a sign of lower intelligence by many species, led to a situation where human soldiers began mating with female Snarkonics. To make matters worse, humans disregarded local religious customs. For the Snarkonics, a ceremonial bath was mandatory before mating. Humans, indifferent to such rituals, ignored these practices. Their charisma, however, allowed them to interact with a large portion of the Snarkonic females, and this was a key factor in their perceived attractiveness across the galaxy. The humans also introduced their own bizarre religious beliefs, including the notion of a naked man on a cross, which further fueled the growing resentment. The constant disregard for religious customs, coupled with jealousy among Snarkonic males, created a volatile environment ripe for rebellion. The bell rang, ending the class. Students poured out for lunch, discussing animatedly. The instructor, reviewing his lesson notes, prepared for the next group of students. In 2334, I reviewed my datapad, seeking to unravel the complexities of the Core War for my assignment. Human sources were biased, and Draconian sources were equally flawed, focusing on religious aspects while ignoring military setbacks. Among my sources was a human literary work titled From Lust to War, authored by Edward Jonth. I skimmed through the book, finding amusement in the absurd reasons for the war until I reached the pivotal moment that ignited the conflict. The account was both bizarre and tragic. Priest Yasamin, after performing his duties in a Snarkonic temple shaped like a turtle shell, returned to his tree home, only to discover his wife in the act of mating with a human soldier. Yasamin, enraged and adhering to religious laws, threw the soldier from the tree, killing him, and then murdered his wife. The priest's actions, combined with the soldier's connections to the Americans, a group known for their violent tendencies, set off a chain of events that would escalate into the Cuts War. The next day, American soldiers, seeking vengeance, rolled a tank to the temple, demanding Yasamin's surrender or threatening to destroy the building. Yasamin was handed over, beaten by an angry mob of Snarkonics, and his execution sparked further violence. The rebellion spread, with insurgent groups emerging and escalating the conflict. I took a moment to process the absurdity of it all before diving into an article about the insurgencies. The article revealed that the rebellion's primary grievances were not just about occupation, but about perceived disrespect and the alleged seduction of snarkonic women by humans. The Draconian Empire, still bitter from their defeat, had also contributed to the chaos, leading to the humans declaring war once more. In 2108, as the snarkonic insurgents prepared for their uprising on Kots, they marched through the streets with armed force, declaring their intention to overthrow the human oppressors. As Easter morning dawned, flags and banners proclaimed their independence, and a fierce battle was set to begin. In the midst of this upheaval, a human named John Preston, observing the events from the sidelines, felt a strange pull, torn between his loyalty to humanity and a burgeoning curiosity about the snarkonic resistance. The situation was fraught with tension and the outcome uncertain. As the conflict loomed, it was clear that both sides were on the brink of a larger confrontation, with no clear resolution in sight. Damn humans! The three words were an exasperated refrain from every alien race encountered in the Draco quadrant of the galaxy. The Talon instructor, with his three piercing eyes scanning the room, sighed deeply, his gaze settling on his 18 students. Today's lesson was one they had all been anticipating. The core war? The students' eyes glittered with curiosity and excitement as they turned their attention to the teacher. Humans are a rather peculiar species, the instructor began. When they were first discovered by the Galactic Council, they were invited to join. Instead, they flatly refused, saying, "We reject this offer as we do not wish to be bound by the will of those outside our own kind. However, we are open to forming an alliance." The council found their stance odd but acquiesced, establishing a partnership with them. The teacher's gaze swept across the classroom again before he continued. It soon became apparent why humans were unwilling to fully integrate. They have always been a defiant race, loathing any form of control. The council had a set of regulations all members had to adhere to. Two rules in particular were unacceptable to the humans. The first was the prohibition of interspecies relationships, a rule established because the council did not want their own species' bloodlines contaminated by mixing with others. The second was the requirement for each species to contribute a form of tribute to the council to support their exploration endeavors. Now, let's address the Draco sector. The teacher switched topics. Draco is a sovereign region of the galaxy governed by the Draco Empire. Its predominant inhabitants are the Snarkonics, also known as llamas or, disparagingly, lizardfolk, and the Renes, an amphibious species. The Draco Empire is renowned for its warrior culture and their reverence for the deity Quimodal, a colossal turtle believed to maintain universal balance. The instructor activated the holo projector, displaying the Draco sector's location. As you may know, 60 years ago, humans defeated the Draco Empire in the Kots Liberation War. This conflict was bloody and ended with a human victory. Subsequently, humans acquired the planet Kots, rich in oil, a substance considered insignificant by galactic standards but essential for human terraforming machinery. The instructor paused as one student interrupted. "Is this where we get to the hole?" "Yes," the teacher responded, somewhat impatiently. Human soldiers, bored and with nothing to do, began engaging in casual mating with the female Snarkonics. The humans, uninterested in religious customs, disregarded the Snarkonics' requirement for a ceremonial bath before mating. Despite their disregard, humans were seen as charismatic and attractive, leading to widespread romantic involvement with the Snarkonics. The teacher's tone grew more critical. Humans also introduced their own absurd religious beliefs to the Snarkonics, including the infamous image of a naked man on a cross. This constant flouting of Snarkonic customs, along with the resentment it fostered, created a volatile environment ripe for rebellion. The bell rang, signaling the end of the class, and the students erupted into chatter as they headed for lunch. The teacher, left alone, reviewed his lesson, mentally preparing for the next group of students. Years later, in my own research, I stumbled upon a revealing piece of literature titled From Pleasure to Conflict, authored by Edward Jonth, a half-human. The book detailed the absurd reasons behind the Core War. According to the book, the conflict ignited due to an incident involving priest Yasemin, a Snarkonic religious leader. Yasemin had discovered his wife with a human soldier, a grave offense in their culture, as it required ritualistic punishment. The soldier, confused about the significance of the ritual bath, was thrown off a tree by Yasemin and killed, along with the priest's wife. This act of vengeance led to a violent reaction from the soldier's friends, who were Americans, a group notorious for their love of violence. The Americans' retaliation and subsequent events escalated into what became known as the Yasemin Affair, sparking the Core War. The war saw further escalation when Snarkonic insurgents, driven by a mixture of cultural disdain and a desire for retribution, launched attacks on human positions. The conflict grew more complex with each passing year. By 2107, the Draco Empire aligned itself with the Snarkonics, leading to a bloody resurgence in the Khat sector. As I read through the various accounts, it became clear that the war's causes were as tangled as its consequences. Insurgent leaders, fueled by religious fervor and resentment, orchestrated uprisings with a mix of outdated weapons and fervent zeal. The Draco Empire, seeking revenge for past humiliations, supported these insurgents but struggled with their own internal issues. In 2108, a new chapter in the war unfolded. The city of Nargith, a Snarkonic stronghold, witnessed the beginning of a significant uprising. As I observed from the sidelines, armed Snarkonics marched with determination, signaling a new phase in the conflict. The site of Khats, once a symbol of human dominance, now under siege, painted a vivid picture of the ongoing struggle. A few months later, the uprising had taken on a life of its own. Despite the chaos, the human forces, driven by a mixture of anger and determination, prepared for counterattacks. Yet, the rebellion seemed far from over. As the conflict continued, the outcome remained uncertain, leaving many to question what the future held for Khats and its inhabitants. The tale of the Core War, with its roots in cultural clashes and deep-seated animosities, is far from resolved. As the dust settles, one thing remains clear: the relentless drive of humanity to engage with the unknown, regardless of the consequences, shows no signs of abating.